Okay, so I'm gonna be real quick here. So, whatever happened to Betty Cohen? Now, I'm sure some of you are probably not old enough to know who Betty Cohen is, or maybe not old enough to have lived through the 90s of Cartoon Network. But if you're a 90s kid like me, you may be familiar with this woman's work on Cartoon Network throughout the 90s. But allow me to give you a brief summary of her for those of you who are not familiar with her work. Betty Cohen was the president of Cartoon Network from way back in 1992. In a lot of ways, I call her the mother of Cartoon Network since she gave birth to the network herself. She stayed in that position until June of 2001. Over time, the network grew from being hardly noticed or talked about to being one of the most talked about and easily recognized networks of all time. She ran Cartoon Network through the eras of the checkerboard, Starburst, yes, that actually exists, and I'll probably do a video on that one day, and the Powerhouse. And throughout her 9 years in Cartoon Network, she made them worth about $3 billion by the time she left, which is pretty crazy. And you want to know why Cartoon Network became such a household name? Is because they had so much creativity and variety on their network. Something they lack nowadays. But I'm not going to get into that. But like I said, the original programming was pretty creative with shows like Dexter's Laboratory, which was her favorite by the way, the Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, and many more. She created a boomerang for people who were nostalgic of the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and she even allowed for an action block called Toonami to bring more of an edge and the older demographic to Cartoon Network, making Cartoon Network more diverse in the types of animation people wanted to see. You could watch animes like Dragon Ball Z and American action cartoons like Batman the Animated Series. The glory days looked to be going on forever until June of 2001. On June 18th, Cohen announced that she would be stepping down as president of Cartoon Network, but would continue to stay with AOL Time Warner until August of 2002. Things would never be the same after this. Now, Bradley Siegel was her successor, and under him, things seemed like they were taking a nosedive. Now, I'm sure it's a bit of a mystery to a lot of people as to why she left Cartoon Network. The only thing we've gotten from her departure was her saying, "I was afraid I would die the queen of cartoons," which doesn't really explain a whole lot, but I would assume she just retired. But then again, she became a CEO of Lifetime Entertainment in 2005. So what was her reason for leaving? Well, I know the answer to that. It has to do with the various disagreements and disputes with the new head of AOL Time Warner, Jamie Kellner. The man is responsible for canceling Animaniacs, Freakazoid, Pinky and the Brain, which by the way I believe was his idea to add an Elmer in the show, and I believe even canceling Batman and Superman the animated series. He's also responsible for pulling the plug on WCW. And if you're a longtime wrestling fan, or at least used to be like me, and you used to watch WCW way back in the day, you'll know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the specific reason from what went on with those two, but it had something to do with Jamie Kellner interfering with Cartoon Network's schedule, using Kids WB to leech off of Cartoon Network's lineup. Remember way back in 2001 when Toonami was on Kids WB? Yeah, that was all Jamie Kellner's idea. And I believe I did upload a video of bumpers and commercials of Toonami being on Kids WB. Now, to this day, Jamie Kellner remains as my most despised TV executive ever. Yes, I despise the man even more than Christina Miller. And I've already explained his little reputation of working at Time Warner. And thank God the man no longer works with Warner Brothers. And I hear he's permanently unemployed from working there, which is great. Not to sound like a complete heartless asshole, but this man was a complete cancer to television way back then. But I'll probably talk more about him in a future video. Now, a few others online believe that Cohen was fired by Kellner, but that is so not true. It was all Betty Cohen's decision to step down. In some ways, I look back at it, I felt Betty Cohen leaving and Jamie Kellner taking over could have led to Cartoon Network's dark ages during the early 2000s. But luckily, Jim Samples was hired as president and would continue on the success of Cartoon Network. That is until 2007. Plus, there was already a great lineup of shows such as The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Codename Kids Next Door, and Megas XLR, ready to step in and become the future of Cartoon Network. Since I continue to be a fan of Cartoon Network long after 2001, I can say I didn't see any decline shortly afterwards, as the network was still going strong with Jim Samples in charge. But it would be several years later for me when I personally noticed any decline in Cartoon Network. Oh, 2007, But back to the queen of cartoons herself. Cartoon Network would not be the success that it is today had it not been for Betty's vision and leadership. Even though the network is in the drizzling piles of shit, especially the schedule for tomorrow's Halloween. But then again, why should I care? Like, I don't even watch Cartoon Network anymore, so... However, she turned our library of classic cartoons into one of the most valuable media properties in the world. But now that I think about it, I kind of felt as though she stepped down because she already achieved her goal into making Cartoon Network a powerhouse, and felt there was nothing more she could do. Which maybe explains why she said she was afraid she would die the queen of cartoons. And she sure was. This is Red Wolf signing out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.